Hey there folks, Aldershot here, and today we're going to do an impression on Resident Evil Revelations 2, developed by Capcom and on sale at the regular price of $25 USD for the whole shebang, or you can get the first episode for $5 USD. Now, we've already kind of taken a look at this game previously on the channel, but that was on its initial release when it was just episode 1. But now that the entire campaign is fully released, we're going to take another look into it and kind of talk about how I feel about the game overall now that I've played the entire thing. And also do keep in mind that I will be talking about the story. I will try to remain as vague as possible and try not to spoil too much for anyone who's interested in the game. But do know I am going to be talking about it. Again, I'll try to remain vague. I won't get into too much specific details, but there you go. That's your fair warning. Also, do know that I'm probably not going to be talking about the basic mechanics of this game very much. If you're interested in that, you can check out our first look into this game, where I kind of go over that kind of stuff. Now, we're going to play a campaign that we got started. At the end of the video, we'll talk a little bit about some of the extra modes that came with the game since its final release. So let's just jump right into it. Go into the main campaign. We'll actually select Barry's campaign from episode 4. So this is the last episode into the series. So let's just jump into that. There we go. We'll also skip a lot of the cutscenes, and we'll be talking over any dialogue as well. Again, as to minimalize as much spoilers as possible. Now, if you watched our last episode on Revelations 2, our last impression, I guess I should say, I didn't really give it a pass. I couldn't recommend it. There was a lot of technical problems, frame drops, including crashes on load for raid mode if you have Steam Online, which is a little bit ridiculous, you know. But luckily for us, since the first episode was released, shortly after, Capcom actually has optimized the game significantly. So a lot of those technical hiccups have been addressed and have been fixed, right? The biggest fix is definitely the random frame drops that this game used to have, which was very annoying. They also fixed some major bugs as well, including crash on load for raid mode. So that's good to see. It's good to see that Capcom took some of the feedback and released it in a better optimized state. So I wouldn't say released, but updated into a better optimized state, right? Alright, so here we are, we're Barry, and we're playing with Nadia, who is the little girl. She's going to be helping us out. She's going to be grabbing this brick here, so she has something to defend herself with. Now, in the first look into Revelations 2, I kind of complained about the AI, you know, the buddy system. I'm still going to have to kind of complain about it a little bit. Now, I have actually finished the game, alright. I finished all the campaigns, and I played through the bonus campaigns that came with the game as well once you finish the game. And I have to say, after finishing it, you know, I'm still not a fan of the buddy system. I mean, Resident Evil has tried this whole buddy system before. They did it with Resident Evil 0, and they also did it with Resident Evil 5 as well. You know, none of those two games are bad, right? But at the same time, a lot of people complain about the buddy system in those Resident Evils as well. And unfortunately, I don't really feel like they've done much to improve on it in Revelations 2. I mean, I understand why they want to try it again, but unfortunately, you know, they just couldn't really make it work, in my opinion, right? Like, I find the partners to be, on a mechanical level, kind of pointless, to be completely honest. Like, Nadia, her real use is to find hidden objects, right? If you see a shiny, she can point to it, which makes the shiny able to be picked up, right? So that's useful in that extent. But she can also look for enemies through walls and stuff like that, which is kind of useful, I guess, but not absolutely necessary for this game to kind of feel like Resident Evil or to be enjoyable whatsoever, right? And you know, the AI is not the smartest either, which is definitely an issue that I had when I was playing through episode 1, and it kind of continued while I was playing through the rest of the campaign. Now the game realizes this and has kind of compensated for it. Something I didn't really touch on in our first impression is that your secondary character, either Nadia or if you're playing clear, Moira, they don't actually take a lot of damage if an enemy attacks them, and also they regenerate health as well, which helps kind of curb some frustration, right? Now, however, with that said, you know, it seems kind of fair, I guess, if the AI is not going to be smart, then let's just compensate them with, you know, improved defense and health, right? Seems to make sense, but the problem is sometimes the campaign splits you and your buddy up, and in times when that happens and you're forced into playing the secondary character, your main character still takes full damage, and that can be an issue because the AI really is not that smart. You know, they're pretty dumb, to be completely honest. They're pretty bad at defending themselves. They're pretty bad at shooting enemies, and that just ends up sucking up a lot of health, right? So again, I'm not really a huge fan of the buddy system. I kind of feel like it's not really that necessary. In Myra's case, all she really does is flash a flashlight to help find hidden objects, and that could have easily been done if they just gave the flashlight to Claire, right? So on a mechanical level, I don't really like the buddy system. You know, I didn't like it from episode 1, and unfortunately, I still don't like it from playing the rest of the episodes, right? Now, luckily for us, you know, it's only minor in comparison to the rest of the game, in my opinion. I kind of feel like Revelations 2 kind of hurt itself by releasing it as an episodic game. And the reason I'm saying this is because episode 1 was by far the most boring and mundane episode out of the 4 episodes that this game has to offer, right? And that's a bit unfortunate because besides all the technical problems that plagued this game on release, the game also showcased basically its worst side right on release. And that's kind of why I think there was a lot of negative reviews for this game, is because, well, the first episode wasn't that much fun in comparison to the other episodes, and also because of the technical problems, right? Now I'm saying this because the other episodes are actually a lot more fun than the first episode. I found them to be a lot better paced, and also they done a lot to kind of, I guess you can say, tickle nostalgia junkies' fancy, right? If that makes any sense. Like, I complained in the first look into this game that it felt too action-oriented, like it was straying away from the Resident Evil formula, right? Something that Resident Evil 6 was heavily criticized for, and I kind of compared this game to Resident Evil 6 because of that. But after playing the rest of the episodes, I have to say I mean, it's still pretty action-oriented in comparison to the classic Resident Evils, but it's not as much as I initially thought it would be. It's definitely didn't stray away from the formula as much as Resident Evil 6 after playing the rest of the episodes. There's actually a fair amount of puzzles, and the pacing is similar to, say, Resident Evil 4, you know, as in there's a lot of high moments, then there's a lot of puzzles, and there's some low moments, and there's some story moments, etc., etc. It's not just a straight run-through, quick-time action, just shoot everything kind of pacing that Resident Evil 6 unfortunately had, right? So, I actually really liked Resident Evil 6, or not Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil Revelations 2 as a whole. As far as the campaign is concerned, I have to say. There's a few moments in the game, as I mentioned before, where I'm like, holy crap, this is actually really familiar. This is something taken straight from the classic Resident Evils. Again, I'm trying to be as vague as possible, guys, so I don't want to name any specifics. Leave it as a surprise for you guys. But when I saw those moments, I was like, this is kind of cool. Alright? The game actually does a pretty good job later on in the episodes, in the later episodes, kind of throwing the series back to, you know, some elements and some tropes that classic Resident Evil fans would probably appreciate. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still not going to be a lot of backtracking, right? Like, if you played Revelations 1, one reason that a lot of classic Resident Evil fans loved Revelations, the first one, was because the pacing and also the map design was very similar to, say, the more classic Resident Evils. There was a lot of backtracking. It was like one really big map, but one really big map that you'll get really familiar with because there is a fair amount of backtracking. And it was a little bit, you know, more puzzle oriented and a little bit more, you know, exploratory, right? Which was great. It was kind of a throwback to the classic Resident Evils, because anyone who's played through the series knows that ever since after Resident Evil 4, the game's pacing has changed dramatically. You know, it's a little bit more point A to point B, shoot all the things, and take a break sometime, right? That kind of pacing. And the first Revelations kind of brought it back to the classic, where there was a bit more backtracking. It was a little bit slower, a little bit more cerebral, if you will. Now, this game, again, isn't going to be quite as much of a throwback to the classic Resident Evils as Revelations 1 as far as pacing is concerned, but it definitely makes an attempt, right? It definitely tries to have those classic fans kind of, you know, be happy, I guess. Be happy and enjoy the game and appreciate it like they did with Revelations 1. So there you go. I actually, like I said, kind of really enjoyed the overall campaign of this game. Something else I really enjoyed about Revelations 2 that never really came to light until later episodes, of course, is the story, actually. I actually really like the narrative of Revelations 2. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Code Veronica. I'm not sure if you guys played that, but that's one of the last classic Resident Evils to have been released. And the reason it reminds me of Code Veronica is because, well, it kind of goes back into some of the origin story of the Resident Evil mythos, right? A little bit of a spoiler, okay, just a little warning here. But the main protagonist in this game is actually Wesker's sister, right? And because of that, the game kind of dives into a little bit of the Wesker bloodline, which I found to be very, very interesting. Now, in Code Veronica, they kind of did this a little bit too. They talked a little bit about the Wesker bloodline through Spencer family. They also kind of talked about the origins of Umbrella and all that stuff. Now, I'm just trying to figure out this puzzle here. I don't remember it exactly, and it's hard to figure it out while I'm trying to commentate at the same time, so do forgive me. It will be a little bit of derpiness here. But anyways, as I was saying, so Revelations 2, the reason I like the story quite a bit is because, well, it does similar things to Code Veronica in that it does kind of go into a little bit of the origins of the Resident Evil mythos, right? Not quite as much as Code Veronica, it didn't do as much as that game, but they definitely did make an attempt, and something I appreciated. But not just that, I also really like the new characters, the new additions to the Resident Evil series. Like, I complain about Moira and Natalie from a mechanic standpoint, but from a narrative standpoint, they are very, very welcomed additions indeed. I actually really like them. I think there's a ladder here. There's a ladder here that I have to climb. I remember that much. I'm just trying to find that now. But anyways, as I was saying, those two characters are great. Like Natalie, she's full of mystery and intrigue. And Moira, she's a very, very relatable and very human character. Something I kind of talked about in the first look into Revelations 2 is that I mentioned that Moira is kind of a flawed character. Not flawed as in she's poorly designed, but flawed as in she's not a perfect human being, right? She's not this super agent that can do anything kind of personality that Resident Evil is so prevalent with, right? And it's kind of nice to see, it's nice to see that, to be honest, because Resident Evil, there's just so many characters that are so indifferentiatable. I don't know if that's a word, but I just used it. But yeah, like there's a lot of characters that's very similar, is what I'm trying to say. Right? Like, they're all superheroes, they're all super agents, they can do all the things and kill all the people, right? And Moira and Natalie, they're regular people who you have to kind of explore their struggle in this trauma, I guess you can say. And it's something I like. It brings in that human element to the story, right? And that's definitely not a bad thing. But not just that, these characters, they're also not just kind of thrown in there just for the sake of being a little bit sappy. And sometimes this game can get a little sappy, I have to say, especially later on. Not to spoil anything too specific. But these characters are motivating factors in the story, right? Now, how do I get that ladder down? Oh, okay, hold on now. I think I have to go up here, and I think there's a ladder I have to knock down here somewhere. I've done this before because I finished the game already. I just have a really bad memory. Oh, right, this thing is also a bridge, so I can get across this way. Okay, good to know. So as you can see, there is still that puzzle element in the Resident Evil series, which is good to see, of course. But anyways, as I was saying, Natalie and Moira, they're motivating factors in the narrative. So they're not just shoehorned in. I think their mechanics as buddy systems were shoehorned in just because they needed to fit into the narrative. That's just my assumption. I have no proof of this, but that's what it kind of feels like to me, right? Like they don't feel like they fit in mechanically, but they do feel like they fit in from a narrative standpoint. Well, mainly because the whole story is written around these two characters, and I feel the game benefits from that, right? So yeah, there you go. That's definitely two of the elements I really liked about this game. I really liked the story. I really liked the story. I liked learning about these characters. I thought there were welcome new additions to the game, and also they are also what am I trying to say? They're also good characters, what I'm trying to say. The other thing that I liked is the overall pacing of the game. You know, it was very exciting to play, I guess. It is very action-oriented, but at the same time, like, I didn't feel bored at any time. The first episode was by far, you know, the most lackluster one, but it kind of makes sense. You know, you have to introduce the characters somehow, right? And the beginning of any story is usually the slowest part, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, I have to say though, I kind of wish that this game wasn't episodic, because then I could have played through the rest of the content and realized, hey, this game isn't as bad as I thought. And also, I wish they released it in a more, you know, what's that word? More optimized states, you know, without the bugs, without the frame drops, and all that kind of stuff. I think that would have definitely garnered a lot more excitement for this game, because after its initial release, a lot of publications and a lot of YouTubers kind of gave the game a thumbs down, and for good reason in my opinion. You know, like I said, the first episode wasn't the best in comparison to the rest of the episodes, and also, you know, the bugginess and the technical problems, right? Definitely didn't show its best face, which is a bit unfortunate. But I gotta say, I'm pleasantly surprised. I really did enjoy the campaign. It's actually quite memorable. There's definitely a few moments where I'm like, wow, that was really cool. And it does kind of throw back to some of the classic Resident Evils in some points, without naming anything specific. But if you play the classic Resident Evils, you'll be like, wow, I know exactly what the developers are referencing towards. And that's pretty cool, right? Anyways, enough of me switching levers and all that stuff. Let's get out of here, because I want to show you guys the bonus content that came with this final release. Now, something else I kind of want to talk about too is that the game doesn't have online co-op, which is unfortunate. That would have definitely solved a lot of the buddy system issues that I have with this game. But it doesn't really have it right now, at least at the time of this recording. I've heard rumbles or mumbles that they are planning on releasing a online co-op eventually. It's just not available right now, so yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. But anyways, we're going to take a look at The Struggle, which is Moira's bonus campaign, and I thought this was really, really interesting. We can start. We'll just do casual, just for the sake of ease, so I can commentate without sucking too bad. Alright, we're going to skip this, as not to spoil too much. Alright, so one thing I liked about these bonus episodes that came with the last episode of Revelations 2 is that at least Moira's bonus episode is quite different from you know, raid mode or the other bonuses that's involved. Well, it's not like dramatically different, but the way that you play the game, the way it's formatted, is actually pretty creative and kind of interesting. I'll show you a little bit of that now. So here we are, we're Moira, we're trying to survive. I'm not going to tell you why she's trying to survive on this island. You'll figure that out if you play the game yourself. But we are trying to survive. And our whole goal right now is to look for prey, such as rats or rabbits, etc., etc. As well as looking for equipments, such as bullets, you know, guns, first aid, all that kind of good stuff, right? I keep missing the rats. Damn it. And the reason we're doing this is because this special kind of survival mode actually has two phases. We're in phase 1 right now, which is the survival aspect, where we again have to look for prey, look for food, look for resources, look for ammunition, etc., etc. So we can carry all that kind of good stuff to phase 2. Phase 2 is when we kill a bunch of zombies, and you basically carry everything that you found from phase 1 into phase 2, and that's why it's important to find equipment and food for phase 2. Now you might be wondering, why am I looking for food for phase 2? What does that have anything to do with Resident Evil? Well, in this mode is very interesting because there's no actual save points. There's checkpoints, but there's no save points. And if you die, that's game over. The game actually deletes itself and you have to start all over again, which I thought to be kind of intriguing, right? And the reason we're looking for food is because if we catch enough food, that will add up to a retry. So we don't have to start right from the beginning. We can start from a checkpoint, right? And so you're going to want to look for food, so that way you can stock up on continues, essentially, or retries. And you want to look for equipment to take into phase 2 to kill zombies with. And that's how it's going to go. And if you die and you run out of retries, again, the game resets itself right from the beginning, which I thought to be very, very interesting. So we're just going around looking for some food right now, looking for some equipment. Alright. There's actually a good few chapters to play through. It'll probably take you around anywhere between 1 to 2 hours to finish this bonus episode. It's about the same as an episode for any given character in the game as well. So do keep that in mind. But there you go. That's basically Moira's bonus episode, which again I thought to be formatted very interestingly, a little bit different from the rest of the game. Something that something that I've been kind of enjoying. But anyways, it's like a 10-minute countdown until phase 2. So we're going to get out of this and kind of take a look at Moira's, or not Moira's, Natalie's bonus campaign as well. And her campaign is called Little Miss. Alright. And we're going to, sure, we'll just continue where we are. Hers is very, very different from Moira's. It's not like, there's no two phases, not like a survival thing. It's very straightforward. It's point A to point B, except obviously you're Natalie, so you have no offensive abilities. So because of that, this campaign is all stealth-based, 100%. Now, something that's kind of interesting about this bonus episode, Natalie's bonus episode, is that we're actually joined by an ally, Dark Natalie. Okay, I don't know what's up with her. I think she's a figment of Natalie's imagination. I could be wrong about this, but the reason I think she's a figment of Natalie's imagination is because Dark Natalie, she can't actually be spotted or be noticed or be harmed or even interact with the enemies whatsoever. As you can see, I'm just kind of like trying to give him a hug here and he's not doing anything, right? But she can point to the enemy and that will mark where they are for Natalie. That way she can better efficiently sneak around any mobs that might be a threat to her, right? And that's basically her campaign. Point A to point B, stealth it out, and kind of learn about her story before she found a berry, essentially, right? And again, as I said, Natalie is kind of an intriguing character. There's a bit of mystery behind her, so it's definitely worth playing. I don't find it to be as interesting as Moira's, The two-phase survival aspect I thought to be very, very creative on the designer's parts, and I really enjoyed it. I might have a little bit of a bias because, to be honest, I'm not really a big stealth guy. You know, with the exception of Metal Gear Solid, I don't really play a lot of stealth games. But so there you go. So we're gonna try to sneak past this guy here and try not to get noticed. Again, Natalie doesn't have any offensive capabilities, so if any enemies spot her, then that's pretty much game over. Now, luckily for us, in this campaign, the game doesn't delete itself if you die, okay? Which is great. Oh, but you do start over from the previous checkpoint. Unfortunately, we did terribly, and we got caught. And she's fainted, quote-unquote. I guess they didn't want to say dead because she's a kid. But anyways, let's get out of this real quick. I'm just going to summarize my overall thoughts on Resident Evil Revelations 2. I have to say, I am definitely pleasantly surprised. I guess I'll do a campaign thing while I do this. We'll, you know what we'll do? We will go into Claire's final episode to give you a little look into hers. And of course, we're going to skip the cutscenes and talk over any dialogue as well, as not to spoil anything for you guys. But overall, I have to say I'm pleasantly surprised. Every episode pretty much after episode 1 was better than episode 1, right? It was better paced, there was more interesting content, and there was more throwback to the classic Resident Evils where I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And obviously you get to learn more about the character and be more involved with the narrative, and things come to light that you're like, wow, that's kind of neato, you know? So again, every episode after the episode 1 I thought to be a lot better, and I'm very happy to say that. And I'm also happy to see that a lot of the technical hiccups that came from episode 1 got fixed in later episodes, which is great to see as well. And I have to say, I can honestly, I think, recommend Revelations 2 if you're interested. Especially now that we know what's coming up, you know, what we're in store for, now that I played all the episodes and all that. And yeah, it's good. I've definitely enjoyed Revelations 2, and actually it's one of the more memorable Resident Evils that I've played recently, so that's absolutely fantastic. Great story, great characters. Not a big fan of the buddy system, still ain't, probably won't be ever, to be honest. But it's in there. It's not like so terrible that's completely damning this game. It's bearable, but it just doesn't add to the fun factor of this game, right? It's just there. It's just something that the player have to kind of figure out and sometimes struggle with, but there you go. But overall, enjoyable. A very enjoyable entry to the Resident Evil franchise, I think. And even strictly from a value proposition, I think this game is worth it. I mean, 25 bucks for the entire campaign, considering that you're going to get anywhere between, let's see, in the main campaign, each separate campaign for each character is roughly 1 to 2 hours. And there's 4 total chapters and 8 campaigns in total. So you're looking at anywhere between 8 to 16 hours, depending how you play, of course, just for the main campaign. And then you also have the bonus campaigns, Moira's and Natalie's, which they're around an hour to 2 hours each. And then there's also raid mode, which is potentially endless hours to play through. And we have already talked about raid mode in the first episode, so you can take a look at that if you're interested in it. But again, simply from a value proposition, I think Revelations 2 actually has it. You know, it definitely has a lot of content for the amounts that it's asking for, right? It's not even full price, but you're definitely going to get about a full price game's worth of hours out of this game. So that's great, of course. That's excellent. So there you go, guys. Resident Evil Revelations 2. Not as bad as I initially thought, which I'm very happy to say, because I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. And also keep that in mind, I'm definitely a Resident Evil fanboy, so I will definitely have my biases, so do keep that in mind again. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I think I can recommend it with a fair amount of confidence. You know, I enjoyed the game anyways. But there you go, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you found this informative. If you did, show me some love, like, share, fave, and comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll bring you more videos like this. Thanks for watching, folks. Alder shout outs.